This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. Welcome to Mountaineer Moment, and if you are still living in the afterglow of that backyard brawl victory for the Mountaineers, I'll tell you to join the club. And maybe that means you're in good company because that's where I'm at. And maybe I'm in good company because I'm with you, because this is still just such a good feeling. 24 hours later, I'm recording, Sunday afternoon, and just, again, an amazing win. You win the backyard brawl in comeback fashion in overtime. I mean, we saw this is a game that in a lot of ways saw everything. Real injuries, fake injuries. You saw three different quarterbacks, and your starting quarterback came back in, and there were no injuries to those guys. It was just Rich throwing out different things, and you're able to get an overtime win against your rival 31-24. It was an electric atmosphere. Rich Rod was so pumped after the game, and you just love to see that, and the crowd was great. The locker room vibe afterward was just incredible, and it's one that, Rich Rod said, I mean, you're gonna enjoy this one for 24 hours, which is what I'm still doing, right? I'm still following that rule, Rich, because we're gonna turn the page here to Kansas and Big 12 play, a big road game coming up next Saturday, and so you got to flip the page, get prepared for that. Open up conference play would be you want to start with a win. You can start with a win on the road, and that sets you up great. So, but before we get to that, one more episode here on Mountaineer Moment dedicated to the Backyard Brawl. This is, by the way, our 22nd episode of Mountaineer Moment, and this is a podcast that's literally been around for 22 days. Okay, so you do the math. About one a day we're putting out at this pace. Don't know that we'll keep that up, but we're putting them out, and we got previews, we got over-unders, fun things that we do. We've got things to look for and takeaways from the game, post-game and previews. So YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, subscribe wherever you're at, because, again, we're pumping out content, and just excited for you to be with us here on Mountaineer Moment, because I've gotten lots of great feedback and lots of comments, people interacting on YouTube. For such a new show, 3 weeks old, there's lots of views, lots of just really cool things. So I'm super appreciative of that. And Mountaineer Nation, if you can just continue to support this small channel, and we're going to continue to do what we're doing here through football season, basketball season, and beyond. But on this episode, dedicated to, again, another episode on the Backyard Brawl before we officially turn the page, just another one just full of exciting things. And we're going to talk about 5 positive things from the Mountaineer win, the thrilling victory in the Backyard Brawl. And again, this is a game that saw everything. A game that saw twists and turns, ups and downs. A game that saw the crowd be taken out of it because you're down 10 in the middle of the fourth quarter. A game that saw a quarterback inserted back in to lead his team to 3 consecutive scoring drives, including the touchdown in overtime that ultimately ended up being the game-winning touchdown for the Mountaineers against Pitt. 62,108 in attendance for the brawl, and it was an instant classic. There's going to be guys that you're going to remember for years because of their performance in this game. I mean, this is Nicco Marchiol's second time beating Pitt. In 2023, he did it at home when Garrett Green went down in the first quarter. He had a little bit of a short leash in that game, didn't pass for a lot, but was involved in the running game too, and now it kind of a similar situation. He was benched, and then he gets brought back in. He leads the team to victory. So, Nicco Marchiol, congrats, 2-0 against the Pitt Panthers in your career as a Mountaineer, and so that's cool. That's what you want to see. But West Virginia in this one, before we get specifically into some things, I mean, they showed resilience, they showed fight, and they brought the battle and the toughness to Pitt. And with their backs against the wall, when things were looking bleak, they stepped up. Offense, defense, special teams. I mean, there were guys who made a lot of plays. And so we're only going to have 5 takeaways or 5 positive things to note, but there's a bunch of things that are positive to note from this game. There's a bunch of negative things to note from this game too, right? Let's be honest. It wasn't a perfect ball game. It was a brawl, appropriately named. And ultimately, what matters most is that you have a W in your in your record book because you made enough plays to win, and the other team didn't. It's just really, really sweet that it was against Pitt. So here we go. 5 positive takeaways for West Virginia in the backyard brawl. Number 1 is that we might have found ourselves a running back. Ty Edwards, Northern Iowa transfer, 1,000-yard ball carrier last season at Northern Iowa. Part of those crew that were trying to fight for their eligibility with the NCAA, and he earned his eligibility, but he wasn't practicing through camp and all that stuff, and dressed out first couple weeks, but didn't see action, didn't see a single carry. And then what's he come out and do in the backyard brawl? For his first 25 carries as a Mountaineer, he gets 25 carries, 141 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 1, 2, 3 touchdowns for Ty Edwards, etching his name into Mountaineer glory forever. Like, this is crazy. A guy who had never carried a ball for the Mountaineers is an instant fan favorite, an instant classic game, and a name that you're going to remember regardless of what he does the rest of his time as a Mountaineer. Like, you think back to that 2025 backyard brawl, one of the first few names to come to mind, if not the first name to come to mind, is going to be Ty Edwards. And Jaheim White getting hurt put the Mountaineers, we've talked about it endlessly on this very podcast, on this very show, Mountaineer Moment, that the running backs and the situation there, now without Jaheim, like, who's going to step up? What's it going to look like? Is Hubbard going to get carries? Is Clay Ash going to continue to be the feature back? Sincere Bowers? Is Ty Edwards finally going to get a shot? And we talked about it in the preview. Like, I did think Ty Edwards is going to get a shot. I was like, Ty Edwards is going to get carries this week, okay? Like, for the first time, he's going to get carries. Did I envision 25 for 141 and 3 touchdowns? Absolutely not. But I'm sure happy he did. And it's not just the stat line either. He just ran really well, found holes, made guys miss, broke tackles. I mean, just ran hard. Ran really hard. Big physical back with some sneaky speed, you could say, who just ran like he wanted the starting running back position. And I'll tell you what, he earned it in my book, man. Just an incredible story for Ty Edwards, and you just love to see it. Love to see what he did, and we might have found ourselves our leading running back without Jaheim White now. And again, that was something we deemed necessary here on this podcast. Was it going to be running back by committee? Was someone going to step up? Was Ty Edwards really going to get a shot? But now with what he just did, I mean, he's the guy in that backfield based on his performance. And again, beyond the box score, if you didn't watch the game, if you go back and watch him, man, he just looked really good. Really good. We might have found ourselves a running back, and he was a huge part in leading the Mountaineers to victory against the Pitt Panthers. Number 2, the defensive success is no accident. No, sir. No, sir. We saw the Mountaineer defense play really well against Robert Morris. We saw him pitch a second-half shutout against Ohio in Week 2, though it wasn't enough, obviously, because the Mountaineer offense was just that bad. But here in Week 3 against Pitt, you held them nearly scoreless for the first half, just getting 3 points at the end. And then through the second half, I mean, obviously Pitt scored, and they went on a 21-0 run to take the lead and go up by 10. But there were numerous plays throughout both halves, throughout every quarter, that West Virginia defenders made plays to win this game. You think about the pick in the end zone from Lewis. You think about, Carrico making plays. You think about Fred Perry getting in the backfield a couple times. You just look at what this team did, and there were plays that were made. Even though you gave up 24, which you hadn't given up 24 yet to this point, but this is a Pitt offense that came in on fire with 8 touchdowns for Eli Holstein through the air. There were, I guess, some question marks about Pitt's running game. It wasn't awful through 2 games, but it wasn't anything to write home about, and you shut that down as well. I mean, Pitt on the ground, Eli Holstein, got sacked a few times and had some issues, so he's got negative 27 yards in this number, but 33 carries for 47 yards. Desmond Reed just 6 for 30 in his time before he got hurt, and just not a whole lot else. Goff had 8 carries for 37 yards. You kept the running game in check, and meanwhile, you were able to run the ball well and effectively, and pick up big chunks at a time with Ty Edwards. Again, 25 for 141 compared to Pitt, who just couldn't get anything done in the run game. And that proved to be, again, that's what we have seen in West Virginia through the first 2 weeks, and think, okay, they've shown some promise as a good defense, but they haven't, who have they played kind of thing. Well, now you play a power conference opponent. Now you play your rival Pitt. Now you play a quarterback who's off to a really great start this season, and a Pitt offense who has some guys, right? Like, they got some dudes. Obviously Desmond Reed going down hurt them, but they got guys. And even like there were big plays from the Pitt offense, like Bryce Yates, I think, got a 68-yard catch that I think it was Tarnu that just stayed with the play. Right? He stayed with the play, was getting blocked, and ended up making a tackle inside the 5 or around the 6-yard line, and that resulted in Pitt getting a field goal. Right? You kept points off the board because of that, and there were, again, just numerous plays. Down inside the red zone, they stepped up. A couple stops, and just defense. They looked good. And again, with an offense that has shown struggle this season, the Mountaineer defense stepped up and has helped them continue to help them in that fourth quarter, because Mountaineers are down 10. They get the field goal. Now you're down 7. Now you got to get a stop. Defense lets off the big run, and then they ended up getting a stop, forcing a punt, get the ball at the 13, and down goes the Mountaineer offense. Then they got that, obviously, stop where Pitt did nothing in overtime, quite literally nothing in overtime. So way to go, Mountaineer defense. And I think what we learn, or a positive takeaway from this thought, is that the success that this team has had so far on defense is not an accident. Like, this is not a fluke. Zach Alley is legit. He's got some guys on that side of the ball that can really play, really get after it, really compete. And, not to say that they're not going to have a bad game, but so far they've been good. So that's no accident. Number 3, Nicco Marchiol. We've talked about it. Scotty Fox comes in. His second drive finds Justin Smith-Brown just on a short route, but an accurate throw where Justin Smith-Brown took it 50-60 somewhere in there yards. And then followed it up with a Ty Edwards touchdown. And then he comes back out, and over the next 2 possessions, or 2 out of 3 possessions, he throws picks. Just bad reads, bad plays from Scotty Fox. And so that allowed Pitt to go on a run. And then Jalen Henderson comes in for a drive, and he doesn't score. And next thing you know, you're losing. And Nicco's been out of the game. I don't know how many minutes or hours passed from the end of the second quarter when the Mountaineers had the ball to the time Nicco checked in the fourth quarter, but it was a good bit of time, right? He was out of the game for a long time. He checks back in, and he leads the Mountaineers to victory. Nicco Marchiol is a dog. He's a winner. He's proven. He's a leader, and he just showcased it in this brawl by not throwing in the towel, not sitting on the sideline pouting. He had a great quote about being a leader. He said, "You don't just pick and choose when you want to be a leader. When you want to and when you don't want to be a leader, you lead all the time." And so he said, even with when Fox checked in and when Jalen checked in, he's rooting for him on the sideline. And then he knew he was going to get his opportunity to come back in. He did, and he didn't blink, didn't bat an eye at it. Again, Mountaineer offense. You think back to even struggles against Robert Moore, especially first half, and then mighty struggles against Ohio. So if you just factor that into the equation, because that's all we had to work with this specific football team. And then I don't give you any other details, but I tell you, about 5-6 minutes left, Mountaineers are going to be trailing by 10 to Pitt. They got the ball. Are they going to have a shot? Are they going to have any chance to win the game? I'm not going to feel very confident. I wouldn't feel very confident with any team you say that against, because it's 10-point deficit with just a few minutes to go, right? I get that, but with this Mountaineer team specifically, you're thinking, man, based on what I've seen, I don't think it's going to happen. Proved us wrong. Mountaineers drove down the field, got a field goal, got the ball back thanks to that defense again, and Nicco led them down the field. A beautifully executed 2-minute drill, didn't panic, didn't freak out, ran the ball quite a bit even in for that, and then found Grayson Barnes in the end zone with 11 seconds to tie the game. Place goes nuts. Then you come back out, you take the field in overtime, and Nicco leads them yet again to points, and the defense stepped up again, got the stop. So shout out to Nicco Marchiol. He's a winner. He's beaten Pitt twice now and just played really, really well. I mean, even for the whole game, right? 19 for 25 completion, threw a touchdown, 192 yards through the air. Just found a way to get it done, and you got to feel happy for Nicco even checking back in and doing what he did. So shout out to Nicco Marchiol for staying engaged in the game and making the most of his opportunity. Number 4, and I get that this is, don't throw anything, don't close the app, whatever you're listening to. I get that this one's like, whoa, okay, calm down. Offensive line improved. All right, we're talking about positives here, and the offensive line improved. And I'm not saying it was like just this incredibly dominant play from the O-line, but there was improvement not only, obviously, from week 2 to week 3, but there was improvement through the course of this game. Offensive line had struggles, like, don't get me wrong, especially first half. But second half, they had a running back run for 140 yards. They were able to help engineer the Mountaineer offense to 3 consecutive scores in the fourth quarter and overtime. Like, you needed that, and obviously, if you do that, your offensive line is doing something right. So, shout out to the offensive line for figuring some things out. Lots of things to still work on, I get it, and lots of things for everybody to work on. And offense, defense, special teams, you got to get better, especially when you go into conference play. But, you watch early on, again, quiet first half, just 7-3, and, I mean, Nicco's taking a beating. Run game ain't going so well. You're not moving the ball that well. There's, a few consecutive punts in the third quarter, and there's some questions, right? And even people were questioning why Nicco got subbed out, and I appreciated Nico's explanation, if you could say that, in his post-game press conference, saying, he came in, there was, talk that Rich had of playing multiple guys, and so he did, and so Nicco wasn't surprised by that. I think at the time he was like 9 for 12, but again, kind of just needed a spark offensively because nothing was happening for a moment there. Preston Fox, I called him that again. Scotty Fox provided that spark and led the team on a touchdown drive before his 2 interceptions. And so, all that to say, offensive line work in progress, you bet. But you put up 31 points against your rival. This offensive line had something to do with that. Creating running lanes, pass blocking just enough for Nicco to throw some of his passes down the stretch there, and you got the victory. So shout out to the offensive line, who's been shouted at quite a bit through the course of this young season. And then fifthly, and a fun one here for the Mountaineers, and I think what we learned and a positive takeaway is that this team is capable of playing with that hard edge that Rich Rod loves so much, right? The Mountaineers got a major glimpse into what it looks like to have your back against the wall, to play in a rivalry game, to play against a power conference opponent. There's been plenty of adversity already this season, like Jaheim White, Jaden Bray out, 2 starters gone. You lose to Ohio. There's questions about the offensive line. There's questions about who should be quarterback. There's questions about who's going to step up receiver and running back. There's questions on the defensive side. There's questions on special teams. There's questions about everything. And what did the Mountaineers do? They just came out, got an early lead, lost that lead, went down 10, came back and won. Roller coaster of emotions for all fans and probably players and coaches included. But what we learned from that, and I think something you want to bottle up and take with you into conference play as much as you possibly can, is this hard edge mentality. You don't win that game without some form of just a special determination, a special will and desire to go out there and get this thing done, especially when you went down 10. And that's exactly what this Mountaineer team did. Their backs were against the wall. The defense earned stops. The offense stepped up. Again, 3 straight scores. And you got the win. And you have to find a way to bottle that up. And I think what that shows you, this mantra, playing with the hard edge, being mentally tough, physically tough, stronger than your opponent. Rich said post-game, when the game lasts longer, we like our chances even more because we're built for it. Mountaineer tough. There's this kind of mentality that's coming back, and the players have heard about it, and now it's like, okay, this is it. This is what it looks like to play with that. And shout out to every single Mountaineer on that team who came out, faced adversity. We're going to continue to face adversity, but how are you going to respond to it? And the Mountaineers were able to respond in the backyard brawl with a victory against Pitt. And, man, this is, again, Mountaineer moment. Still super excited. I got just a little bit left of that 24 hours, Rich, so I'm going to continue to enjoy it. But, hey, we'll be dropping several new episodes this coming week talking about Big 12 conference play in West Virginia doing battle with Kansas in Lawrence next Saturday night. So there'll be plenty of episodes coming your way this week to preview that action. And, of course, post-game recaps of that matchup as well. So join us next time on Mountaineer Moment. Again, this is episode 22 for a podcast that's been around for about 22 days. So we're rolling. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Let's go Mountaineers.